So, a new study shows that boys are almost twice as likely to die from COVID 19 than girls. And this is specifically looking at children. Take a look at this quotes, and then I'm going to show the article in a second. Boys fared worse than girls. Males accounted for 63% of deaths, compared with 37% for females. Now, here's the headline. CDC study finds coronavirus rarely kills children, but minorities at higher risk. And I've linked this article in the description below. And here's what it says. Children and teens from minority groups are disproportionately hit by coronavirus, just as older adults are, according to the findings of a new report from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, aka CDC. Hispanics, Blacks, and American Indian Alaska Natives were disproportionately affected. A total of 44% of the 121 who died were Hispanic children, 29 were Black children, 4% were American Indian Alaska Natives, and 4% were Asian or Pacific Islander. While these groups represent 41% of the U.S. population under the age of 21, they accounted for approximately 75% of deaths in that age range. 14% of the deaths were in white children. Now, there's obviously nothing wrong with acknowledging the racial difference. I mean, it's important. I mean, that's the science. I do think, though, that the gender difference does seem to get a lot less media attention, because in that CNN article, and I'll give them props because at least they did mention the difference for boys, the part about boys is kind of like shoved in towards the end like an afterthought. I mean, look at it again. So again, here's the part about the gender difference. Boys fared worse than girls. Males accounted for 63% of the deaths, compared with 37% for females. Now again, yes, at least they put it, but when you go through the article, you'll see that it's kind of put all the way down towards the bottom, and it just gets that one little sentence, like it's kind of an afterthought. When 63 to 37%, that's an almost 2-to-1 ratio. That's a really big difference. And this higher mortality rate for men, this doubly high mortality rate for men, is pretty consistent across the board, and for men and boys now, we know. So males are twice as likely to die from coronavirus. And this is something that's been known for a while now. So again, just to be clear, I'm not criticizing that CNN article for talking about the racial differences. I think the racial differences are very important because that's just the truth. That's just the science. That's just the data. I do think that the gender difference does get a little bit shorthanded, though, when it comes to the media attention. I mean, yes, obviously you saw all those articles that I just linked, but I remember when those articles all came out in April, they were talked about for a couple days, and then it doesn't really get talked about much anymore. And the reason why a gender difference is important is because of things like developing a vaccine. You know, would a vaccine for men or boys have to be different than for women? Or maybe men would need to get more of the vaccine. Or maybe the treatments for men would need to be different. So that's why it's important to talk about the gender differences as well as the racial differences. But I do give CNN credit. I mean, they did at least include that line in the article, so I'm not accusing them of like trying to cover it up. They did acknowledge it. I just feel like in general, the gender difference doesn't get a whole lot of media attention anymore, and it should get a bit more than it does.